Zink with your host, Samantha. I'm in studio with Dr. Jenelle Kim. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. So happy to be here, Samantha.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Do you
pleasure.
live close? Where do you live?
I live in
LA?
San Diego, so I'm a San Diegan. So, you'd think that's close until you drive here.
I've done it. I have a
know.
friend in San Diego. I've
Yes.
even Ubered once.
Yes, well, I'm thinking about it because at least I can get work done. If I have someone drive me back and forth, it sounds very hoity-toity, but, I could probably get a lot done.
So you come to LA for meetings?
I do. I'm coming more and more for more events. One thing for sure, I love San Diego. I'm definitely a San Diegan at heart.
Yeah.
But certainly kind of the buzz, very interesting people, very successful, motivated people. LA is a place where a lot of you meet. And so I'm happy to be here. But,
Yeah.
I'm learning the balance. So.
I mean, so what is the trendy things to do in San Diego?
The trendy things to do in San Diego. Well, I probably should share that at this point in my life, I have two young boys. So I have an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old. My husband, Craig, who we've been together for almost 20 years. We've worked together for almost 20 years.
Oh, wow.
We have my lab together, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. So a lot of my trendy things to do right now have to do with my kids.
Yeah.
But love that. Obviously we have the water, surfing, a lot of sports.
Are your boys surfing?
They are. You know what? That my oldest, Vince, is very into basketball, which I love that game, And my little one, Jackson, he's 7, he apparently loves football. So, every mom kind of, at least on the West Coast, if I was, in the South or
Yeah.
I would
you
not
always
cringe.
I don't have children yet,
Yes.
but you put them into
yes.
different sports
Yes.
and whatever they love.
100%. And then they just kind of latch onto some. So that's what we do. And quite frankly, I do. I have friends who know my schedule. We're all so busy, but my particular schedule, balancing, I own several companies, I run my manufacturing lab, all the things, but they always say, how do you find the time to come into the class, right? And it made me stop for a second because I really do, but I have to say it's, everything is about, I speak on living meditation. It's about prioritizing and balancing. Mm-hmm. And to me, I, of course, prioritize my boys, but I have to say it's very nourishing for myself as well. It's a place whenever I'm with them or any of the littles, I swear it's like a meditation. Everything kind of goes away and you're just very present with them in that moment. So I really love that. I love being with them.
I was going to ask you
Yes.
because I was just reading, I was doing my research on you, and
Yes.
I see that you're a 9th generation herbalist. Yes. You're a best-selling author,
Yes.
and you have your lab.
Yes,
and
many roles. We're women, of course.
And mother,
Yes.
wife. So how do you find balance? Are you a time blocker?
A time blocker. Explain that, Samantha. I think I am, but I want to know exactly what that means.
And I'm
How do
only
you
asking
define
you
that?
selfishly because I
No,
feel
I
like
love it.
my life is chaos, so I
Understood.
keep asking other people.
Understood.
I envision a time blocker as somebody who has their calendar blocked off every 30
I thought
minutes.
so, and yes, I am, down to the minute, and people know this about me. In fact, it's something that I don't always share, but here it comes. The people closest to me will always laugh because I will have 3 minutes, and I will say, okay, we have 3 minutes, what do we want to do? And they're like, Jenelle, but that really is. So in all seriousness, I am. Mm-hmm. I am also very, I really do practice what I preach. I could not live without what I call the 3 M's, which are the 3 pillars of what has been passed down in my lineage for 9 generations, myself being the first woman to be the guardian of these tools, as I call them, which is medicine, has to do with my lab and manufacturing the products, eating properly, it's the doctor side of me, movement, and meditation. But meditation, when I speak of that, I actually talk about living meditation, which is a philosophy of life, right? It's a way of life. And so one of the most important things, kind of long story short, what I'm getting to is it's all about balance. Right? And so as much as I'm a time blocker, I'm also very prepared. There's certain things, I know I'm going to be here with you today. I'm so excited. So I plan that accordingly, but I'm always ready to pivot, And you have to, or you'll go crazy.
Oh my gosh. I try to do so much in one day.
Yes.
That I'm like, okay, I need to, but I'm really good at doing 10 things at once.
Yes.
Other people struggle.
Yes.
I am like, I can do 10 things at once, and then the day is done.
Absolutely.
Some things I don't want to do where I keep pushing it in my to-do list.
That's understood.
I don't want to call XYZ or do this.
Totally. I'm the same way, to be honest,
Yeah.
Samantha. And I think as we get wiser, it doesn't always have to come with age, but I think it comes with experience and a bit of time.
Yeah.
That's certainly something that I practice more now than I did 10 years ago, which is, yes, I do prioritize my time a bit differently, especially when it comes to my kids, but they're a part of it with me. So my boys, they understand. I'm on the go a lot. I do have to leave them sometimes, or if I'm writing articles or my book, in bed during our time together at night, which is very important to me, our cuddle time. I tell them he's, my oldest is 11 going on, 25, and I tell him we're going to do this forever. But, I'll be doing it with them and communicate and have them be a part of that. So, the people closest to me, it all just kind of flows. And it's not always perfect by any means, but
yeah. So when you're with your children, you aren't one of those who are like, I'm not even looking at my phone. This is their time.
No.
You mix it. Okay.
No. I know everyone loves to say that, and maybe some
I
do.
respect it. That would be
and
me.
so I don't think I've ever said it so direct, but this is how it's happening today. No, that is not how it goes. Sometimes it is. Yeah. Sometimes it will be, but the reality is when you're an owner of businesses and you're on a mission, to me, this is a job, but it's also literally like a duty that I have taken on from my lineage. So it sounds kind of daunting, but I find all my purpose and passion in that. They're a part of that with me. So no, it's very rare that you just see my phone completely off. But when I'm present with them, if it's very important, of course, I'll prioritize accordingly. But the reality in my life is it doesn't always happen like that.
I respect that and appreciate it because I'm so sick of hearing people BS and romanticizing everything like, this is for my children and I'm shutting off. And like, I'm just like, can us entrepreneurs just be honest with each other?
That's the truth. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur basically my entire life. And I have to say, I've kind of already mentioned, but in my life, and if people choose to do that, that's awesome, good for them. But in my life, it's been a really important part raising my kids so far, and will continue to be, that is part of what makes them involved with me. I mean, we'll be in the car, and just the other day, my youngest told me, okay, Mom, when I'm younger, I want to take over the lab, and I'm going to do this, and Vince is going to do, I mean, it's like already in their brains, and I don't tell them these things. They're just a part of it with me. So that's my intention, if you will, when I include them in what I'm doing. And there are days where if I actually have to prioritize what I'm doing for that moment, I will communicate that to them. It really is about that. Right now, Vince and Jack's like, I need you to go over there. When I'm on, my meetings or my podcast and they happen to be home, they know to be quiet. I mean, it's just the way it works.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll come knocking on the door, and you know what? That's okay too. So
I love it. Yeah. I just want more entrepreneurs to be honest, because I feel like I keep listening to podcasts. I'm like, why is everyone BSing?
Well, I'm very happy that you feel this way.
Like, we're always drowning. We wake up at 3 a.m. because we have to-do lists just in our minds. Like, let's just be honest with people.
Absolutely.
So
And
they
that's
know
what
they're signing up for.
Yes. No, I appreciate that also, Samantha, because not everyone's asked me that, or at least not recently in that way, and me answering so bluntly, to be honest, but that's the case.
Yeah.
It's always that balance. Yeah.
Well, let's start in the beginning of your entrepreneur journey. How did this all come about? How did we get started?
So the pillar of the 3 M's of my 3 pillars that I really have focused on, as a career, as my life path that I spend the most time on, is medicine. And when I was about 19 years old, I'll backtrack just a bit. I was the first daughter, the oldest, very, very close to my father, who was my greatest teacher. Unfortunately, passed away about 8 years ago, but he's part of the whole process, of course, also after he passed. So I'll get into that in a moment. But so I grew up very grateful to have grown up with these tools. Right? But it was never forced on me. And I think that's something very, very important. Although it was around me, one of the main principles of what I teach around the world is that we all have a choice at the end of the day, no matter what, right? And so certainly I live that. So while I was surrounded by these tools, these ancient principles, this ancient medicine, it was never told to me, this is what you have to do. So I go to school, very academic, very traditional upbringing. I would say strict. My father called it traditional. I get it a little bit more now. I was like, no, this is strict, but I would never say that to him. But, studied really hard, decided to go towards studying Western medicine. Then about 19 years old, I was in school, and I started seeing there were about 3 particular instances where I saw people have some serious conditions, okay? And I saw them, our medicine basically treat them, and saw it rebalance their conditions. And for some reason at that time, it just hit me. It was one of the first moments that I can honestly say in my very young adult life at 19 that literally the light bulb, you hear that, like the light went off, and I thought, you know what, I have to do something about this. And so I think that's one of the first times I connected to, what I have decided is my purpose. So I basically said, all right, I can always come back to school. I'm going to go study Eastern medicine and show the world, to the best of my ability. I don't even think I went that far yet, this medicine. And so now fast forwarding a bit, I wanted to be in clinic like my great-grandfather, who I named my lab after, JBK Wellness Labs. People think I named it after myself, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that, but that's just not necessarily my style.
Agency is my last name,
which I think is amazing. It makes a lot of sense, and if that resonates, awesome. But actually, it's named after my great-grandfather. He was an amazing doctor and practitioner of herbal medicine as well. And so that's what I wanted to do. Then again, the universe kept pushing. I had a lot of people reach out to me, particularly in the skincare world, kind of fast forwarding here, and would say, I'd send out these formulas to dermatologists or certain practitioners, doctors, but it was kind of behind the scenes. And there was one in particular who said, I've never seen skincare work like this. You have to do something with it. And so I fought it a bit. That's the part I want to share, because I thought, no, I want to have clinics, so on and so forth, but started making products. Then all of a sudden started helping a few brands in the spa industry. I was at the forefront 20 plus years ago at natural products, which means that at that time, natural, clean beauty was not a thing.
No.
So that was like a whole thing that we were kind of fighting for and forging ahead. Herbal medicine, Eastern medicine, Korean beauty. Everyone just thought, oh, that's really nice, but no one's going to get it. I thought, okay, that's fine. However, I feel very strongly that this medicine and this way of beauty and wellness, everything we're seeing right now, is the way. And so I just kind of kept forging ahead, and here we find ourselves now, 20 years later, where after I helped a couple brands started coming to us to manufacture products, and now that's what I call my day job. So I have my manufacturing labs where we make products, skincare, hair care, body care, internal supplements, muscle and joint, all the things, all rooted in the teachings of the herbal knowledge that's come down my family. So it's really
that's awesome.
Exciting. But,
that is exciting.
A long path
yeah,
to even get here, and I've just begun. So.
And yet you said you were fighting it, so it's always like what's meant to be. I mean, you can fight it all you want, but
yes, absolutely. And I could have.
What's meant to be will always be, right?
Yes, Samantha. Yes. Well, it's something very interesting. I had a conversation this morning with someone, and I do want to acknowledge for anyone that it's helpful. I think about it all the time that there could have been moments where I would have fought it and actually won my fight, and my whole life would have changed direction. But because it really is important to me, these principles that I practice as much as I teach, that I kind of stood back for a second and thought, okay, clearly something is happening here. And the way I looked at this in particular was, I want to share this medicine, but maybe if I step back for a second and realize that the way I can open more people's eyes to this medicine is actually going into the beauty and wellness now industry versus just being in clinic. So, I almost didn't, but I'm grateful that I did.
Yeah. I mean, you're in a great industry. I feel like beauty is so huge right now.
Yes,
with TikTok.
huge.
And wellness as well.
Absolutely.
Especially, I mean, in LA, my New Yorkers, they have a ways to go. I'm like, are you guys even working out over there? But
no, I must say, actually, it's really amazing because I'm doing more and more events that incorporate those three pillars. In fact, 2 years ago, a very special moment in my life was actually with DVF, Diane von Furstenberg, in New York, and she did her first ever in wellness, in charge event where that was one of the first events where I taught the movement aspect. I teach Qigong, which is a form of medicine, and it all combined with beauty, as a way, and women coming together, and now there's a lot of different events that I'll go to in the beauty industry that will it's all converging right now, just in the last couple of years, 2 or 3 after, COVID.
Yeah, so, I mean, I've been seeing a ton of wellness, and then beauty is absolutely booming. But wellness in particular, I think that is just sort of new.
Huge. I agree with you.
Where just even 5 years ago, no one was talking about wellness. And now you and you were just mentioning an ice bath. It's just in LA. That's right. That's the hangout. Hey, do you want to?
I know. Take a sauna and an ice bath, and talk about all the plant medicines and herbal medicine and the clean beauty. And I mean, I could not be happier.
You're like, so this I get. This I can do.
This is the truth. Yeah, stand behind it.
Well, let's talk beauty. Okay. So there are so many products right now, so many brands.
Yes.
I do influencer marketing, so I see it all, and I've tried it all. And I think just somebody going 20s to 30s where they're trying to understand skincare, what they need. Anti-aging is huge. Building collagen. What is in your products that we need? Why do your products work? And do we need all of the 8-step skincare routines? I want to know everything.
Yes. Okay. So first and foremost, I'd like to start. And yes, I do. I produce a lot of the brands that you probably all know. not all have the herbal medicine, but the principles behind, what is important, what really makes our skin function, right? And so first I would like to say, to shake things up, I also use the word anti-aging when I talk about ingredients or when I give presentations, because we all know what I mean when I say it. But also let me be the first to say that there's no such thing. We will age, but it's how we age gracefully, right? And so it's longevity. I love that word better. We can use all the words. Let's not get hung up. But I think that's important to remember, because when you think of it that way, or even just pause and consider it for a moment, what that means is that we have to make lifestyle habits, right? And sometimes lifestyle changes, whether it is our skincare regimen, it's what we eat, it's what we put into our body, it's how we think, it's how we move, and all of this actually does converge into the beauty and wellness. They're two in one, they go together, and that is the best thing to look at when you're looking at a company. If it really, once in a while, if we want to buy a beautiful lipstick, I'm very much about balance when it comes to myself. I really am, when it comes to my children. So, if you want to wear a beautiful lipstick that's not necessarily clean and you love the color, go for it. I mean, I certainly do sometimes, But in general, there's certain things that we can look for in our skincare and our cosmetics, body care, you name it, that, set up a nice foundation, if you will, of being clean, of being less harsh on our body, The way I love to think about it is this, because I love things that make sense and are logical as much as it's like connection and all the things. And I find that Eastern medicine, ever since I was young, it just makes sense in that if we think of our bodies and that every single moment our bodies are going through so much, our body is doing so much for each one of us, right? Whether we're sleeping right now, when we're stressed, when we're relaxed, it's constantly working. And so if you think of our bodies that way, and you think about what we're putting onto our body or into our body, and if what we're putting onto our body or into our body is filled with chemicals, artificial flavors, artificial colors, artificial fragrances, these are all chemicals that's hard for our body to balance. So we're just making it harder for ourselves. And making it harder, that challenge on us ultimately will lead to aging not as gracefully, right? And so I think that's a good principle to understand why using mostly clean products, why eating foods that are good for us. I think that's a good way of understanding it, where it makes sense. We're not just memorizing like this is good, this is not. We absorb it, So I don't know if that's exactly, I can go into more detail.
Well, I mean, if clean products are going to make me look younger longer, I am all for it.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the thing too, is it builds on each other, right? So we can do all the things. Like I said, if you want to go and do some medical spa treatments, we all know what I'm talking about, go for it. But in general, it's always about that balance. Is it going a little bit too artificial, too chemically? Are we incorporating other things? And that's a good way of kind of balancing everything, if you will, because then it's sustaining, And
I have noticed a lot of the clean products, beauty products,
right?
I thought that they wouldn't work as well, but I have been trying them and they're amazing. Even the Say Beauty Blush, I believe is natural, and it's one of my favorites.
Yes, I have to say I really love Westman Atelier. That's a cosmetic line. I don't usually name names, but it's one that I actually use in my daily life. So that's a beautiful cosmetic. There are so many more options now. And I actually, because I started, was I say on the forefront of natural products, because clean beauty was not even a thing a couple decades ago, that it was known that natural products didn't work as well or as efficiently or effectively. And I have to say I understand that, because decades ago, I think that was the case. Now, for my formulas, it was much different, because they were the effective plant medicines, that really can stand in comparison to, I don't want to say it too strong, to a lot of the other type of ingredients that we're familiar with, but are a natural version that can be just as strong and effective. But especially back then, it was hard to formulate. I mean, I'm a formulator by nature, right? The herbal medicine aspect. I have an amazing team, of chemists in my lab, but ultimately making natural products are not as easy. It's so much easier to put in some chemicals and some fragrances and make it feel like so silky and beautiful and smell perfect. But now fast forward, because people are wanting more and looking for more. That means that industry keeps growing. And as a manufacturer and formulator, that's awesome, because now we have a lot more options, at our disposal. And so now you're seeing a lot of, we are switching ultimately, right? There will always be med spa, and I get that. It's the yin and yang, that is the balance. But yes, there's a lot of incredible products, if I may say so myself, and brands out there that are clean but very effective. often more effective at this point because of what I said when it comes to hair care or skin care for a lot of people, you know, so.
And you see these brands are now offering natural lines. Like
Absolutely.
they'll have their, their main line, but then also offer natural products.
Some of your huge global brands are now having to pivot and go into the clean beauty because so many people are looking for it. And yes, our brands are carried in your high-end spas, Four Seasons, Ritz Carlton, your Nordstrom's, Neiman's, of course, Whole Foods, the natural marketplace, as I call it, but also in your big box stores, which are like your CVS's and your Walgreens. They now have divisions that are clean beauty. And so that's pretty neat.
Crazy. So fast forward 5 years, 10 years, where do you see these trends going? What do you think we're going to start seeing more of?
Yes, I think that, to me, because I'm in it so often, I feel like, wow, we're there. But then I travel and I educate, and it's wonderful actually to see, okay, no, we still have so much work to do. How many people still do not actually, are not aware, let me put it that way, of the clean beauty options, why it's important, certain supplements, certain ways of life, that incorporate, as I call the 3 M's, the medicine movement and the way of thought, but all of this is going to come together. So I think it's 100% going to keep going in this direction. It's a trend, but I think it's going to be lasting. And the interesting thing is, it's not really a trend, in the sense that the lineage I come from, these are literally the principles that existed thousands of years ago. They've adjusted, they're for modern times now, but we're in many ways actually going back to our ancient roots, our ancient medicines and practices, and that's why I know it's going to last,
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's not a trend where it's popular right now and we'll go back to our old products.
Because there's plenty of things, and we'll see that too, interspersed in there, certain ingredients, or that's nature, and it can be fun. But in general, I don't see it going anywhere.
So if you're looking at 2 people and then one person is using only natural products, the other is just using the chemicals and whatnot.
Right.
What, fast forward until when they're in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, what are the differences between these two?
Now, I have to say, as an Eastern medical doctor, that, every constitution is different, right? And we all know that. It's like you hear of the person who smokes and drinks all the time, is out in the sun and lives to 102, right? Yeah. And the person who takes the best care of themselves, and unfortunately that's not the case for them. So I at least have to say that our constitution, our genetics, how we are born, our body type, however you want to put that, matters a lot, right? But in general, for people, a lot of times, one of the things that really matters a lot to me to share and to educate, no matter where I am in the world, is to remember that we really have to be aware of ourselves, because it's so easy not to, particularly in our Western culture, right? It's like unless something's broken, we have to get that far until we even notice and want to do something about it. I do believe that's what's changing as well, and I hope I have a part in that. I believe I do. But I don't want to go too far off on the tangent here, but ultimately,
I love it.
Okay,
You're
okay,
good.
okay, good. I'm like have all the things, but in general, ask me the actual question because I want to answer.
So 2 women, one is using all natural products.
Okay,
all
that's
of her
right.
20s.
Got it. Okay, so I want to answer you first, and then go down this whole, education part of it. So what people will want to say, see rather, is that with that awareness, you start to become more aware of your body, also your mind, right? Inside and out. And what people don't recognize is, although you might not see it right away, good or bad effects, right? If you keep using a lot of chemicals, things that are not balanced or good for your body has to work harder, it will show up years down the road. And as it turns out, I want to say this gracefully, that oftentimes people don't know that connection yet in our Western world, right? So we don't understand why we have this symptom and this symptom and this symptom, and modern medicine does not necessarily connect that because that's not necessarily Eastern medicine will, right? A lot of our ancient medicines look at the root cause of things versus just the symptoms, and that can actually be very overwhelming for people. Same topic, but a little bit different, but just in short, to answer that, you won't notice right away. Yeah. But then later on, I have sleep problems, or we go through our cycle of life, where we're hitting menopause or perimenopause, and we're starting to have all these symptoms that might be more extreme than necessary. And a lot of that has to do with all of the chemicals, all of the things that are not good or not balanced for our body, to not get into all the detail. But that's the part that we don't necessarily know. But if we start to understand that now, equals the preventative medicine or the integrative or whatever we wish to call it, if we take good care of ourselves now, it'll show up later, not just in how we look, but how we feel in every aspect of our life. So it's really, really important.
And I think now is when we're going to start seeing it.
Yes,
Everybody's sort of changing products and being a little
absolutely.
more conscious of what they're putting in their body or on their body.
Yes.
So we have to wait to
absolutely.
see what happens.
Yes, and times have changed too, Samantha. Even from the time I was young, we were young, different for our kids, because there's a lot more, there's a lot more that we have to be, unfortunately, I don't want to turn this into a daunting conversation, but there's a lot more that we have to be careful of right now, because than even when I was young, for sure. In our food and the things around us, in the air around us, there's a lot more stressors to our body and our mind that I know, the next generation, including my children, have to be aware of, which is why I believe that this shift is happening,
Yeah,
So.
I mean, even my generation, being a millennial, I never knew of anyone who was gluten intolerant.
No, and that's the thing.
That was like a new thing, and I was like, when I grew up, is this made up? Like when I grew up,
Right. No, there's a lot, so many different things. Mental health statistics. I mean, I'm not going to go off on that path right now, but there are so many. And I was just with a doctor, doing a presentation last week here in LA, and he started saying some statistics for our children, and it was mind blowing. And he said the same thing. We all kind of had a conversation, and it was the same topic, that certainly things have adjusted. It's not just that we couldn't, didn't notice it before. No, things are off balance right now, for sure.
Yeah, and
so
even someone, I didn't hear about this, but then one of my clients had mentioned that they're saying that, I could be late to this, that Cheetos were causing ADHD.
Sure, all of that. My
the
boys
red
know.
Dye, right?
There's red dye, MSG. There's so many different things that are in so many, and there's so many other, ingredients that are not really great for us. And again, do my boys eat their favorite chips? They're not their favorite, but these types of chips, and have their candies every once in a while? Yes, because also there's a fine balance, in my humble opinion, and what I have learned in my life and what I share, that our body should be able to handle, to be able to balance some of this sometimes, but I look at it a lot when I think of my kids. They know what to look for. They will, it's funny, but it's very accurate, that they will turn the bag around and they will see that there is, some bad ingredients there, some to watch out for, including, red 40, some of the artificial colors that are known to cause, if you eat enough or it's consistently in your life, there's a good chance that you will have those symptoms that come along with that. The consequences is what I'm looking for,
And there's a lot more options now.
Yes.
When I was a child, it was like Gushers and candy and Lunchables.
Absolutely.
TV dinners.
Yes, and why they even love it. My boys want this all the time too. I'm like, it's really
It's not good.
But it's the fine balance. It's when you do it all the time in your life and it keeps building. That is where we have to be careful. You know, every once in a great while. It's fine.
I think we just have to be educated, a little more educated. And again, I keep saying millennials because I just feel like we had such a weird time in this journey, right?
Yes, I agree.
I feel like Gen Z is a little more educated. We're just living life on the edge. But once we're educated, then we can start making those conscious decisions.
Absolutely. And everyone's going through this right now together, which is a beautiful thing. That education, that awareness. And it can be overwhelming. I'm speaking of how 20 years ago, no one knew of these things. Now it's like it's yin and yang, it's extreme, right? So now it's everywhere, and it can almost be overwhelming.
Oh my gosh, even TikTok, I'm like, is this right? Like, what is correct around here?
I hear you.
There's so many experts in this space.
There are so many experts, but then there are some of us, I'm considered an expert in beauty and wellness. Now, I come from a lineage of masters, so to even call myself an expert, is not so easy for me. But there's plenty of people out there that have no problem calling themselves experts when, on the other end that are not. And we just have to be aware. We can't, put blame on anything. But if we're aware that we should look into, even a little bit, just take a pause. Like, where are they getting this information? Where does it come from? I do think it's really important.
Yeah.
So.
I'm grateful for TikTok and all of the knowledge.
Absolutely.
But sometimes you just have to be aware of who is giving you this information.
Yes. And then it starts to make sense. Again, I recognize that this is literally the world I've lived in basically my whole life, but particularly in the last 20 plus years. Mm-hmm. And so to me, it's like second nature. But I recognize that that's not always the case for everyone right now. But the more you incorporate into your life in a natural way, it's my favorite word, because when we do it naturally and not extreme, it sticks, it doesn't become frustrating or overwhelming. It's just part of your life, you know, and you just take one step at a time, and you find people who do resonate, that you know do come from a good lineage of knowledge in some way, shape, or form, you know, and that would be my, you know, my recommendation for people.
And all of the options, I think, make it fun now.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've learned to embrace it all too, you know, even social media. That wasn't something I, you know, however many years ago I loved, to be honest. I tend to be a more private person, but now, you know, it's
your business card.
It's my business. It's so important, and I've certainly embraced it as a way of engaging, sharing, you know, information and education, and so yes. So there's so many benefits.
Modern day marketing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just had a conversation where I don't have a business card, and the other person didn't either, and I said, right, I actually like Instagram for that, because you see someone's face. I'll always remember your face, but you know, it's hard to remember everyone's information on a little piece of paper. So
yeah, I mean, I've never even had business cards because I don't know, I'm like, here's our Instagram, you know, follow us, stay connected.
With a little message, and you can remember each other, and
yeah. And LinkedIn has been huge lately too. My Gen Z employees are telling me like it's the new social media.
Yes, especially for business. So
I had no idea.
Yes, LinkedIn is important. See? How am I telling you this? You know.
I was never a big LinkedIn fan.
I know,
and
I hear
then
you.
my employees were like, no, because my mom was always like, apply for jobs on LinkedIn.
Yes,
and I thought, but now it's a social media platform.
Yes, absolutely. in a different way. And it is nice to see kind of the nuances. I agree.
That's how they get their news and see what brands are doing. And I'm like,
absolutely.
Geez, well, thanks guys for letting me know. I guess we got to get on there. So
agreed.
Yeah, well, I want to dive into meditation.
Yes.
And I know your book talks about meditation as well.
Yes, this is true.
Were you drawn to write a book?
Yes, I was. So I say that process. So as I mentioned in the very beginning, I lost my father, unfortunately, over 8 years ago now. And, you know, the last 10 years of his life, again, kind of long story short, I just knew that I wouldn't have him around forever. And he was my everything, my greatest teacher. And so I spent a lot of time taking notes, asking questions, you know, gathering all of the information. And sure enough, he passed away in 2016 very unexpectedly. And it's interesting what we do when we are grieving. You know, I don't have the answers of exactly what that looks like for everyone, but I have come to find in certain conversations that I've had that, you do interesting things that when you look back, you're like, wow, that was like you're in a different alternate kind of world. And when he passed away, for all the reasons, I felt compelled to put out this book. And the book is meditation, but it's living meditation, which I kind of touched on. Different than meditation in the way that we're thinking of it. Living meditation is not necessarily a phrase that's been passed down in my lineage for 9 generations, but it was my way of, you know, how do I encompass in 2 words what I mean by this, right? And so meditation is huge right now. Again, 20 years ago when I talked about meditation, people are like, what are you talking about? So I'm so grateful. And while I'm a huge proponent of seated meditation, I teach moving meditation, which is Qigong. As I said, it's one of the best medicines for our mind and body. But when I speak of living meditation, which is the book, it's 8 keys, so 8 principles. It's actually... It's constant. It's meditation every moment of our entire life. And what I mean by that is when we think of meditation, and I often love to ask this question, if I may, Samantha, like, what does meditation mean to you? There's really not a wrong answer, so.
Just sitting down, closing my eyes, the deep breaths. And what I used to do, I've been out of habit now, but I would manifest while meditating.
Okay.
But yeah, I feel like that's what I always thought meditation was. So when you said living meditation, I'm like, I must know what this is.
Yes, it's different, and it is certainly the teachings that have been passed down in my lineage, but they connect to the Tao, the universe. That's a whole thing that maybe I'll get into in a second. But ultimately, meditation, if I may, and you basically said it as well, it's a way that we purify our minds, clean our minds, if you will, right? We know that if we walk into a room and it's completely disorganized, there's stuff everywhere. It's always our choice of what we wish to do with that. But in general, I think we all could acknowledge, yes, this room is very disorganized. Not this one, it's beautiful, but we can picture, right? Well, how often do we do that on the inside? Right? And so meditation is a time to kind of calm our mind. I think most of us would agree, become more aware, become more present. These are the words we hear often, to broaden our perspective, to see more clearly. And that is huge, right? As a business owner, as a parent, in a relationship, whatever it might be, seeing clearly is of utmost importance, because then you make correct decisions and you can really move further along your path and achieve whatever you wish. Okay, so that's what I define meditation as. And all of these practices help us to get there. But most important is how we apply it every moment, right? And that's what living meditation is. It's certain principles. For example, the first one is know yourself. That's ongoing for all time as far as I'm concerned. There's one called that I like very much that's coming to mind of the 8, which is stop being drunk on your own thoughts. Very, very important.
Overthinking.
Overthinking, also always remembering that you might feel very strong about one thing, but the wisest thing we can do is that not that we have to be swayed or influenced by everything, but maybe step back for a second and just be aware that sometimes our thoughts can be more dangerous than anything, more intoxicating. They can help us not see clearly. So it's about kind of, again, broadening your perspective, remembering that we can also get very caught up in our mind, equals anxiety, equals panic, equals so many of our mental health imbalances. But if we're able to, through the 3 M's, through the practices, calm our mind, step back for a second, pause, put ourselves in someone else's shoes, for example, we start to train our minds to see more clearly, more options, right? And so that's one. So just be careful, because our thoughts can be more intoxicating than even if you were drinking a whole bunch of alcohol, just to say it clearly. It makes you not see clearly. And then another one that I love is actually the 8th key, be like bamboo. It sounds very, be like bamboo. And I knew this would be a thing. But that is one of the most important principles in living meditation, in the practice of momentarily in my whole life. And again, that was a visual that I saw. I used to love, go with the flow. I loved that, and I agree with that. But then I started looking around, and I thought, you know what? It doesn't stop there. There's something missing, in my humble opinion. Because what I saw is go with the flow. You can always, if you're not rooted, you're just kind of taken everywhere, right? And that is a lot of where I see people having a hard time with their mental health, emotional, spiritual health right now, equals it all connects to your physical health. So bamboo, as a visual, is so rooted. This is known for anyone who knows bamboo, or we can look it up or go outside if you have some. I do. It's so rooted, but it's also so flexible. Especially as a woman starting young in my career, this is something that really resonated with me, that so often in life, when to do and not to do. There's times that we have to be bulldozed through and be hard and strong and unmovable. Fine. That's part of the balance. Certainly there's times where I am. However, I have come to find at this point in my life, and what our teachers and masters have taught us, that actually the greatest strength can come from flexibility. When you're very certain, when you're very rooted, which is the constant practice of constantly rooting, grounding ourselves, then when anything comes your way, you actually have that flexibility. It actually is a very martial artist type of, right, like that board, you can karate chop the board and it breaks, and it's hard board. I could hit you and it would hurt a lot, right? But if that board is hit too many times or hit the perfect way, it breaks. Where bamboo is very difficult, actually, because of its flexibility. So in short, when the winds of life, when all of the challenges come, those winds push that bamboo all the way down, but because it's flexible, it'll bend down, but as soon as it passes, it can bounce right back up. It can actually be very, very dangerous and strong in a different way. And so those are the types, that's the meditation I'm speaking of. If I did not have that principle, parenting would be much more challenging, running businesses would be much more challenging, working and being married to my husband for 20 years, I don't think we'd have the relationship we have, which is incredibly strong, so.
I love that. So I've never heard of that before.
Yes.
And it's resonating with me because this year is my growing pains challenge year.
Totally.
And I have just stayed resilient through everything because well, in my mind, I guess this is my living meditation.
Yes.
I could be upset and scream and be negative, but it's not going to change the circumstance. I have to just be strong and know that the universe is doing this for me, not to me.
Absolutely.
And that there's a reason. So I've been just so strong and resilient and not letting it stress out my life and take over. So I just get through it day by day.
I love that. And you said it perfectly.
I was like, oh, wow, I'm doing living meditation without knowing it.
Love that. And I love that you just said day to day, because sometimes it can be moment to moment. I think that sometimes we set ourselves up and create these expectations, and we're human, right? So that's a huge kind of recommendation or tip that I love to share. I practice myself, especially when we have a lot on our plate, is that, start small. It's very important, right? Okay, in this next hour, I'm going to be aware of pausing, stepping back for a second. Another, oftentimes it can be very visual for me, which is why I create these phrases for these principles that have been in existence. But again, I don't think my ancestors were running around telling each other to be like bamboo, but I certainly am, because I see it when I'm in a situation, anyways, one other thing that really helps me in life, and what I hear you saying, is reacting or responding. Now, it can be so subtle, those words, but I have made them something in my mind that, to me, reaction is emotion. Nothing wrong with emotions. We're human. But when we let our emotions run our life, it's very up and down. It's very hard. Very challenging. And life is already hard. That's my favorite thing lately. Stop making everything so complicated and hard to the best of our ability, right? So that's reaction. It's emotion. But when you respond, this is what this word means to me, so for anyone that this is helpful, you're balancing with what's ever in front of you. And remembering that could be different any day, right? So, especially let's take parenting, because that's very up and down because they're children. But, one day this could work and the next day it can't. Or maybe it won't, rather. And so when you step in that perspective, it's not so disappointing all the time. We're not constantly setting ourselves up, and there's certain rules that we don't budge on in our household. Being kind, listening, these types of things. But in general, that response. So when you're in front of someone in a relationship, for example, whatever that relationship might look like, to always remember you're the only thing in this whole life that you can control truly is yourself. That's also can be really daunting, but incredibly freeing and empowering. You cannot control anything in this life except for yourself. So and also, we always have a choice. We always have a choice, no matter what it ever feels like, what we're going to do in that moment. We can't, as I just said, we can't control the things that happen, especially business can be very stressful, of course, or, relationships, basically all of it. But when something comes in our way, in that moment, and I'm very grateful. One of the things of having lost my father in that way, sounds interesting to say I'm grateful, but there are certain things that I've committed to never forgetting in honor of him. And one of them is life is short. It's very short. You can be here one day and literally gone the next. And I do live that way. That can sound very like warrior-like, but it helps me a lot, And when you think of it that way, and also I see that in my children, my son's already 11, almost taller than me. How often? Gosh. Yes, like jeez. Literally. I know. Well, I'm wearing heels today. I'm very, petite, but he's almost taller than me. It makes you think differently. How am I going to, in this moment, I could do this or this. That's living meditation. I can do, and you become so much wiser and more intelligent by practicing this way, because you constantly just open up your mind, expand your mind, and then when you're in a situation, you make a choice. If I go down this road, what's going to happen? We are very. All of us, very brilliant in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, even the just reactions or like treating a situation.
Yes.
And I've learned that with employees and with business,
important.
And you want to just type your email really fast, all angry, and then you're like, you know what? I will sleep on it and come back to
100%.
it.
And how often do we feel a certain way in the moment, and then we do take that pause? We hear this a lot, but I resonate with that. You take that pause. And then whether that pause is a minute, you take some breaths. That's where breath work is not just, Qigong is the very first breath work that ever was, or very first exercise. That is what I teach. And when we're able to utilize some of these very quick, I'm all about it because we don't have a lot of time all the time, very quick breath work, even breathing in and out. Naturally, just that alone. If whoever is listening right now, you just do that in that moment and you will literally feel immediately your nervous system calm, your mind calm, you'll feel more grounded. Just one breath can make a difference. And then you move forward. It's
especially powerful. I find I'm like, if I get that email, I'm just like putting my hair back. I'm like, I have so much to say right now.
And then I'm like, I'm Korean. I can be fiery. Are you kidding? I'm half Korean. But so I'm all about it. And sometimes it's okay. Sometimes that's what I'm saying, It's not always just, we're just always zen and nothing. No, absolutely not. When to do and not to do. There's times to be fiery and there's times not to be.
But it's crazy because when you sit on it and then you go back to it, I just lose caring about it.
Yes.
I'm like, actually,
because you've taken that emotion out of it. It's not charged anymore.
Yeah, I was like, I actually just don't even care. Okay, cool.
Yes, absolutely.
That's it.
And you, part of that is, when we talk about beauty and wellness, now you've taken all of that, you can put all the things, that's aging, that's stress, you know? And so when you're able to take that out of it, you can feel it initially, we're human, and then you move that way, I mean, you just naturally, can't we just all picture that it makes us that much more beautiful, that much healthier, that much more vital, have that much of a longer life? Because you're not so stressed all of the time.
If you're just fighting battles every single day with people, you're going to age
And believe me, if we
rapidly.
wanted to, we could do that every minute. We could fight battles. Are you kidding? Life, I feel like, is much... Yes.
I mean, and I used to.
Yes,
I used to be fiery, and now I'm just like, I don't care, because guess what? I'm going to continue moving forward. And there's so many situations that this work, life, all personal. And this year more than ever, I don't know if it's just being in my mid-30s or what, but I'm just I'm like, okay.
I love that. Well, let me give this to you, Samantha, and everyone listening. Most people don't talk about their age. I always wanted to be older. It sounds really crazy to all the women out there. They're like, what is she saying? But I did because I always wanted to be taken seriously, and I had a mission and a duty. It's very funny. But also I just knew that as time passed, I would feel that way, and so now I just turned 42, and I kept saying to myself, no, and maybe, my mother taught me that as well, which I appreciate very much, and other strong women, when I'm in my 30s, and it also has to do with hormones and life experience. Things are, and that's men and women alike, not just women, but as a woman, when you're in your 30s, things are going to calm more, be more consistent. Then when you're in your 40s, it's going to be, and it's true, and I keep telling myself this, that's right. And now I'm 40, I'm like, oh, please, this world better watch out.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it is crazy. And I am honest with my age. Well, I mean, I'm mentally still 28. I don't know what
It's funny
happened,
you say 28 because I always think I'm 28. That's a very funny thing.
I don't know. I was like, I don't know if it's like a pre-pandemic thing, but I do not feel older than 28.
No, and for a long time, it sounds ridiculous. When I was in my 30s, I would actually answer people this way, like, how old are you, 28? Like, no, I'm not. I'm sorry. Or I'll age myself, My husband's like, you're not 42 yet. I'm like, oh, okay.
No, but I actually do get that because in my career, in my 20s, especially working for people before I started my business, I always felt so young, and they always made me feel like I didn't know enough. So I'd work in PR agencies and I'd speak up with my ideas, but because I was so young, no one listened to them.
Yes, absolutely.
And now I have my agency and I'm in my 30s and I'm like, I'm a visionary. I have so many ideas, but in my 30s, I feel like I can speak up now.
Yes, absolutely. I love that we're having this conversation because I don't think it happens very often. Two women just here talking about how we like to age. That's we should change the podcast name.
I mean, I was thinking about that the other day.
I know,
though.
it's a
I was
whole
like,
thing.
I'm so confident, whereas my 20s, I just felt like the hierarchy in the company always made me feel belittled me and made in society.
Sure, absolutely.
And now I'm like, I'm so smart and I know what I'm talking about and I have amazing ideas. But now I don't need anyone to tell me that I can act on them. And I just, and I do it and I see it come to life and I'm like, wow, I wish I knew this in my 20s because I would have accomplished
so
things
much.
a lot sooner.
Absolutely. No, I really love this conversation. And you can start in your late 20s. You don't have to wait per se, but it is part of the natural cycle of life. That is wisdom. That is exactly what wisdom is, just a bit more time. And then we were able to ground ourselves and have that confidence and, all of the living meditation, those 3 pillars. That's why I say I could not live without them because that's what helps me to keep rooting in, being secure with myself, knowing who I am, always being open to adjusting and always improving, no matter what. Doesn't mean you have to tell everyone that all the time. We can quietly do so, but always looking to expand and grow. But, it's very powerful.
And then you look at yourself in your 20s and you just almost are like, why did I do that? Why did I send those emails, those text messages? Like, and then in your 30s, you just are like, you don't even have to fight the battle. You're like, okay, I wish you the best.
Yes, absolutely.
Sending you so much love.
Yes. And then wait until you're 40. You're like, I'm not going to answer that email. How about that?
I
no,
love
I'm just
the
joking.
journey of this because I am ready. Yeah,
I know.
mean, and I always thought that everything needed a response. Not
Oh,
everything
same.
needs a response.
Are you kidding? Absolutely. And certainly I will, but also things get busier. Are you kidding? So.
Well, I mean, like not every
I could
negative
not agree.
thing.
Yes,
well, I've also been having trouble answering all my text messages, but that's a whole different
Yes, that's another conversation, but same. I agree.
I think we're in the era of like, it's okay to answer a few days later and everyone understands now.
Yes, thank goodness, because I agree. We're on the same page. I absolutely love that.
I didn't know, and I've been practicing living meditation because I've been trying to be a better version of myself, of how I respond and how I handle challenges and treating my team and being patient with them and balancing everything. And it's kind of just a self-growth.
It is. That's why I like calling it medicine for the mind, you know? Like I said, my day job, what I've been doing for so long is medicine for our body and our mind through eating properly, putting on all the good things, the conversation we just had. But that's why I really am sharing more and more that movement is medicine. It is one of the quickest ways. I keep repeating because I feel very strong about that when we're having...
walking around?
Well, I teach Qigong, so it's very set movements, very simple movements that connect with breath work that I do before I go up on stage and speak in front of, you know, however many people, or before I go into an important meeting, or when I'm feeling fatigued. There are things, literally, you can do it throughout the day in 2 minutes. That's the thing. Proper movements. Those are the movements that have been handed down in my lineage, for example. But that's a way that we're able to, you know, that is beauty and wellness, kind of going back to what we began with, you know, and the living meditation is medicine for our mind. You know, and if we think of it that way, I think we take it that much more seriously. You know, that's why I feel that one of my greatest roles is just communicating things properly. You know, because these practices and this medicine has been around for thousands of years. So I do feel that part of, one of my most important jobs, if you will, is just learning how to communicate so that people get it, including myself.
And with the movements, if you don't know how to do that particular movement, what is something that someone can do, you know, if they're maybe like stressing out or they have a speaking arrangement, or even if they're in school with a presentation, or they're nervous or frustrated.
Absolutely. You can take, you know, I'll teach two things very quickly. First is just how to breathe correctly. So many people do not know how to do this. And it's very easy to not do it when you're doing all the things. But if you find yourself in any of these moments that feel a little imbalanced one way or another, you breathe in through your nose, but you breathe into your stomach. Really important. So that's a deep breath. So a lot of people breathe in your chest, right? And so you breathe in through your nose, filling up your abdomen, and you exhale through your mouth, pushing your belly button to your spine, and then having everything leave, and doing that even 3 times. Proper, correct breathing can very, very much ground you. Thinking, you can even put your feet on the ground, sitting, standing, it doesn't matter. You literally just picture your feet grounding into the earth, and you take a breath that way. The one more advanced step from there, very simple, is basically the same thing, except I call it the 5-5-5, the Dr. Jenelle Kim, the living meditation 5-5-5 breath. But remember that, because what you do is you breathe in for 5 seconds, you hold your breath in, totally filled with oxygen for 5 seconds, then you exhale for 5, and with no air in your body, once you've exhaled in 5 beats, you hold with no air for 5 seconds, and you can do that 5 times. Wow. So breathe in 5, hold, breathe out 5, hold 5, and do that 3 to 5 times. And it naturally will very effectively and very quickly calm your nervous system, your brain waves, ground you. In Eastern medicine, we say like rebalance your chi, you know? So it's really powerful.
I used to do that all of the time. And I haven't, I feel like, in years. And I think this is my sign that I need to chill out. That means a lot to me. Yeah. Listen, we all do it. Are you kidding? And you can do it anywhere. That's the beautiful thing. My breaths and ground myself because it's almost like the days go by. Like it's like morning and then, oh my gosh, it's night. I'm in bed. Where I think we need to have those pauses throughout the day to like have a moment.
Yes. And it can be literally a minute long. Or I love doing it in the morning for 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. That's very important to me because that time usually people can't take away from me. Not
even the children?
They actually know. I'm like, listen to me. If you want to come and interrupt me, you can join me. It's very simple. Or go over there, you know?
My gosh,
when they were young, they understood. Do not interrupt mommy when I'm doing this.
Oh my gosh, yeah. If you're like...
Yes.
Yeah, you're like, I can't.
Because it's true. I would wake up at 5. They usually wake up at 6. When I wanted to wake up at 5, especially when I was writing my book, or 4, all of a sudden one of them would get up. I'm like, what are you doing? What in the world are you doing? Like, you usually wake up at 6, the day I decide. So we get our 10 minutes at least, you know?
No, I always see people on social media. They're like, this is I wake up before the children.
Yes.
And I'm like, I don't have children, but I'm taking this advice when I do.
Yes. And I love my sleep. Don't get me wrong. When I was writing the book, I would wake up at, like 4 in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
But now, no, I don't love waking up at 4 in the morning. And I don't need to right now until my next book, you know?
How long did it take you to write your book?
Oh, goodness. I never finished that, but so it took about 10 years collecting everything, right, that you'll find in the book. But the actual writing of the book, where I actually sat down and wrote, I would say about 2 years, Samantha, 2 years. And it's a long process. I have to think about that again. You know?
And you went through all of the notes that you took with your father?
Yes, that's exactly right. So I had an incredible literary agent who unfortunately just passed, a very close friend of mine, renowned in the publishing world, Bill Gladstone with Waterside. Found him, because that's a whole process in and of itself too.
Yeah.
You know, and then my book is published with Watkins and Penguin Random House, which was one of my biggest dreams,
That's
you know,
very
to
cool.
kind of go to one of the big five. And so, yeah, so it was a long process, but overall, maybe it was about 3 years, and it launched right, you know, in the midst of COVID. So,
Wow.
pretty interesting.
Once
But-
you launched, were you already like itching for your next book?
Well, you know, I'm being asked, and luckily my publisher is so wonderful that they're giving me a moment, because there's just, again, prioritizing the time blocks, as we say. I know right now I need a moment because I really do love, it's very important to put your heart and mind into what you do. I really do stick to that. And so, you know, I was able to communicate that with them, and it will be happening soon. In fact, we're emailing about it today. So
That's exciting.
yes, so news to come. But
Wow. And I feel like that's it came out in 2020,
2021.
2021.
Yeah.
3 years
so it
later
has been 3
now.
years.
I
Yes.
feel like that's perfect timing.
I
in
think so
between two
too.
books.
I mean, honestly, I was about a year ago we started talking, if not even before that, but I think so too. So thank you for that, because I'm in the
Yeah.
midst of thinking about it. I'm like, oh,
my
I don't want to
gosh.
lose this, you know, moment in time, but I won't. So I'm grateful.
Yeah.
Yes.
It all, in divine timing, it
Yes,
always happens
exactly.
as it should.
Exactly. I
And
agree.
besides, thinking about the book, do you have
Yes.
anything else happening or any
Well,
new plans?
Yes.
Entrepreneur itch?
I just started a new show that, again, I never really say no, but this one time my team brought it to me, and I was like, absolutely not. I have way too much happening. I don't want to scatter myself.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, Janelle, it's going to be fine. Like, just dress nicely. We're going to go to the show. It's a beautiful beauty show called Beauty Matter, actually. That brings the best of the best in the beauty world. So I was going anyways. And we took a cameraman up there, and basically it's called The Experts, to get to the point. And it is, as an expert in the formulation, manufacturing, product development world, I interview experts in the beauty and wellness, but beauty so far. I'm president of L'Oreal, Juice Beauty, Tatcha. I mean, so many. Drunk Elephant is, actually not yet. I shouldn't say that. I was talking to her, but that hasn't happened yet. We'll get them.
We're manifesting.
Yeah, she's wonderful. But really amazing companies that I'm inspired by, and not just beauty brands, but also marketers and AI and you name it. And so I started on YouTube. I'm going to put that much more, attention to it, but it's pretty neat. I love it. It's about
That's
10 to
awesome.
15-minute interviews for those wishing to build a brand, people buying these products. And so that's really exciting. And yes, my book and teaching more events. So
Oh, that is very cool.
Yes, exactly.
Well, you're, getting out of the lab and doing
yes,
the interviews
exactly.
and events.
Yes,
which
but
I
my
think-
favorite thing is making products, for people.
But
Yes.
getting out in the world too.
Yes,
I
yes,
mean,
and teaching.
I feel like it's always nice to just be, I'm like always home now working. I'm like,
Yes,
I need to
it
like
is
get out and
wonderful.
do things. That's why I like
Yes.
the podcast too.
Yes,
I'm like, I
I-
get to connect with people outside of Zoom. Everyone
Right.
loves Zoom these days.
Absolutely. No, I love this coming in person. Yes, there's several podcasters now who love for you to come and join, and I think it's awesome because of exactly this.
Like it's not
know?
COVID anymore. We
Yes.
can see each other
Yes,
real
the
life.
human connection is a real thing, in person.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming
I'm
on.
so
I loved
grateful.
this conversation.
Thank you for
Even
having
our
me,
veers,
Samantha.
we veered
Yes.
on the
Yes,
age,
absolutely.
all of that
It's
stuff.
my
I think
favorite.
it was fun. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Until next time, y'all.